everybody. Christian Bradley streaming live for the Game Institute from very chilly California today. It's cold. Oh, I'm going to get blasted with sound here. There we go. It is cold here in California. Of course, some of you have freezing snow and blizzard conditions and all, but for California, it's cold. We actually had frost on the ground. That only usually happens once or twice a year out here. So, I am sitting here in my freezing office because we have a heater, but I've not set it up to get here in the office. Yeah, so it's cold. So if you're all that crinkling in the background, that's me in my wear once a year winter jacket. So, sorry about that. We have a bunch of pet creatures, mostly reptiles, that needed some heat, so we can kind of divert the heat from my office to the room that they're in. So they're nice and toasty warm in their tropical climate, and I'm freezing here in my office. So in the summer here, it gets so hot that my computer heats up this room so we can barely stand it. We actually have problems air conditioning it, but today it's freezing. So go figure. We live out in the desert, so it pretty much goes from way too hot to way too cold. There is no in between. So today we're going to be talking about the very exciting Bend tool. And I'm being a little sarcastic there. It's pretty neat. I'm going to approach this tool a little different. I saw a video on YouTube many months ago and was completely kind of enthralled with how the host used the Bend tool. So I'm going to do something similar. And but the Bend tool obviously bends objects. A few things you need to know about it first. Well, obviously you need the polygons in your object if you're going to bend it. So if you're just trying to bend a box or something, it's not going to do anything other than just taper the box. The Bend tool also works on that center, object center. I call it the pivot. Every other program calls it the pivot. But that pivot needs to be placed. So usually that involves that 3D cursor. So now all of a sudden we're into the 3D cursor, and that's lots of button pushing and button mashing and so forth in Blender. So the Bend tool, one of the few tools in Blender that I don't think works as well as other programs. I would like to have some sort of control in the Bend tool interface itself to move that center of the object, and I have a feeling that's tangled up into that non-destructive part of the script behind the scenes with Blender. I'm not sure. I'm not a scripter. But there's probably a good reason why it's there. Not there. It's just I don't really like the way that it works. So if you combine the Bend tool with some other modifiers, we're going to be looking at subdivision surface and a few other modifiers here, I think. You can get some really cool results, and you can do some really complex stuff with it, like make coils, springs, circular objects. You can do all sorts of really cool stuff with it. So that's where we're going to start off here. Also, what I'm going to end up doing here in a second is what we're going to be seeing as a pre-recorded video. We do that sometimes. I actually recorded this video last week trying to prepare for today's stream and trying to figure out how to use the Bend tool. At this point I can get the Bend tool to work just fine, but I think I'm pretty clumsy with it. It's always the positioning of that pivot that throws me. So I'm going to play this pre-recorded one, or otherwise I'm just going to fuddle around looking for some of the controls. One of the few modifiers that I think doesn't really work well as a modifier, maybe it needs to be moved over to a different area or something. I just don't like the way the controls work with the bend tool. Anyways, the video's been cleaned up, so it'll be a little bit more efficient and move through it if you're following along. Yeah, I see Dale is already making fun of me. He says no Alt-B unless you mean it. Yeah, that's true. Alt-B is the quickie bend tool key command that I swear I've never gotten to work. I know it's there. I keep going back to it. I'm determined to figure out how that Alt-B works, but I can't control the thing. All it does is flip my objects all over the place. I've seen a few videos where guys just are like, hit Alt-B, and it just makes this beautiful bend. And not me. A couple things. After we're done with the bend tool, and I think we'll have some time, I wanted to show you a new little trick I figured out. Just a trick. I haven't really figured out what to do with it, but I was thrilled with my new little trick. So I'll show you that when we're done. I'll leave it as a surprise. And coming up this afternoon, we've got another video at 12, and I think it's on the dinosaur anatomy. I'll check and let you know when we're done here. So without further ado, let's talk about that bend tool. And if my voice changes a little bit, now you know why. And coming up this afternoon, we've got another video at 12, and okay, wait a second. That was not at all what I wanted to do. That's the on-off switch for, well, I didn't know that. Space is also the on-off switch for my YouTube controls. So I'm not sure what happened there, but let's try this again in this video. But first we're going, that was it. Yep. To cover just a few other techniques that got skipped along the way, mainly dealing with the array modifier. So I've made this object. I'm in edit mode right now. This is kind of a simple, I'll show you what it looks like in object mode with the modifier off. Looks kind of like a square construction chrome. And all this is a plane with an inset and then some extrudes to come up and over and make that little divot in the top. And I've applied a subdivision modifier to it with the views set to 2. And well, that's what it looks like. I've also put smooth shading on it. Okay, we'll go back to edit mode. So what you're seeing there is the original and then the subdivided version. Okay, next I'm going to come over here and put an array modifier on this. And I'm just going to type in a count of, let's say, I don't know, how about 12? We'll make 12 of these little doohickeys. We'll kind of get situated here so we can see them. And what we're going to do on the array modifier now is connect these all together. And to do that, we're going to hit the merge button in array, but they don't really merge. What merge should do is kind of melt these together and make like one big armband or studded collar, I guess. And that's because our array is sitting under the subdivision modifier. And this happens quite a bit. You could just hit these little up and down buttons and slide the array up, and you'll see when the array is on top, the array modifier is taking place first, and then it's being subdivided second. So that means this connection is being taken into account. And if we, if we jump over to wireframe, you'll see they actually now are merged. So that's a really neat trick, but it also makes, that's a pretty complex object that we've got there. And you could use this process for, well, just about anything. This is a good way to make tire treads, for instance. We're going to see it again when we get to that part. Or belts, studded collars like we're making, or tentacles, whatever you'd like. So now we're going to apply another modifier to this. We're going to apply the deform modifier. Simple deform, there it is. I had the wrong modifier. Okay, the simple deform. Now your mesh is going to freak out when you apply this. You get some weird stuff happening there. That's perfectly normal. That's because it's on the wrong axis. I'm going to go ahead and fold up these other modifiers so that we don't get them confused. So there's the other two modifiers that I added. This is my deform modifier. You can always tell by the little picture here which one is which. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is move this modifier. So this is the deform modifier, and we want to move it before that subdivision modifier. So you can see now, if I was to fold all these up, this is our array, that is our deform, that is our subdivision. Getting these in the right order is important because they just won't work otherwise. I'm going to fold out my deform modifier again. Okay, we're back. I had to get my axis straight. The array modifier works on the z-axis. And so what it's trying to do is it's trying to go around this way, and you can see it's stretching these outer areas more. It rarely works. For whatever reason, that's not fantastic. So what we need to do is give it a new origin to rotate around. Now we really would like it to just kind of rotate around its original origin. Maybe pick something like, I don't know, maybe this y-axis so that it just kind of looped around like a regular object. So what we need to do is to add an object. So we're going to go to our object mode, and we're going to add an empty object. And you can pretty much use any of these. I'll just use a sphere, just because, well, we can use any of them. They're basically nulls or empty objects. They don't have any volume to render. They're just there as a coordinate system. And so what I'm going to do is then move my little object right over here to about the edge of that piece. And then we'll go ahead, click on this guy, go back over to edit mode for this. And now we can select our new sphere that we made. Set our modifier finally to bend, so now we actually see it bending. And here's the nifty thing about this, is if I go back to, well, I'm in object mode now, but if I go back to object mode and then rotate that object around, it's basically a controller object. So you can see it trying to control it. So if I get this precise, let's zoom out a little bit here. If I get this precise, then I can go to rotate, and we'll rotate it on the, let's see, what do we want here? We want it on the x-axis, and we'll rotate it 90 degrees. And now we start to get that curve. Now, I don't want 90 degrees. I think what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to rotate it on the, that was the x, right? Yeah, the x-axis. And we'll rotate that, let's try something smaller, like 270, that might work. 270. There we go. So now that's pointing straight down. And that's looking like, as long as I get the settings right now, I could kind of curve this all the way around, which is what we're after. And at this point, it's just a matter of coming to our bend modifier. And this angle, well, I want it to go 360 degrees. So we'll type in 360, and you can see that it is now bending all the way around. So we made a very nice little bend there. Now we still can control this controller. If I want to come back in here and rotate this, you know, we can rotate that to do all sorts of crazy stuff. Twists, twirls, whatever it is you want. You can see if I rotate that kind of around randomly, you can get all sorts of crazy stuff. I don't really want that, so we'll go back. Okay, we're back. Sorry, I had moved the screen. We're getting ready to join these two pieces together. Now, if you want that little rounded piece there, that's fine. That's just going to happen with the multi-subdivision modifier on it. We're going to go back to, click on this guy. We're going to go back to our modifiers. Now, our array, we can apply the array. We're done with that. We can go to our, what do we have left here? We can go to our deform and we can apply that. We're done with that one. Now this subdivision modifier, remember that's the one that is controlling the original mesh. And you can see here, if I zoom in, that original mesh, got a lot of stuff coming together here. What we really want to do is just join those two vertice groups together. At this point, by the way, your empty isn't doing anything. I'm just going to make it invisible so that I can get rid of it because we've already gotten rid of all the modifiers it was linked to. So we can just come in here and we'll grab these two vertices. I'm going to hit A. I'll hit B. We'll select those. Alt M. And what we'll do is merge those two together. See them glued together like that. We'll hit A to deselect that, B to select those guys. Alt M, and we can merge those at the center. And now you've got yourself a nice little ring. It did that because now we're gluing those subdivision vertices together. You could also do that by removing vertices. It's just I didn't have my object starting exactly at that center piece, so I was pretty sure it would take some finagling to get right. At this point, we can get rid of our subdivision modifier or play with the views, whatever it is that you want to do, or just leave it on if you really want to. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to go to edit mode and we will go to edges, and I'm going to just get a little edge. Oops, there we go. I'm going to extrude that edge. So we'll hit E and scale, and we'll just scale that down a little bit. There you go. And you can probably tell what we're going to do at this point. If I was to come in here, hit those two, hit F, you can see that it's going to connect those two. And then I can come up to this top piece and just hit F, go all the way around. And now we have either a gear or a blobby thing. Whatever, I'll go with the blobby thing on this particular one. And I'm going to go ahead and apply my subdivision to this in object mode. There we go. I'll just apply that just to wrap this up. But we made that fairly complex object with that nifty process. So obviously gears I've shown you how to make the primitive of, but that's a hard type of object to make. It's something that's curving on all the axes. And now you can use bend, which is finicky in Blender, but you can combine it with your other processes to get something pretty cool. Okay, let me get caught up here. So I've got Blender open behind here, and there we go. So I'm going to open a new file. And we've got a little bit of time here to talk about bend. I'm going to go ahead and add just a basic cube. Scale this, and I'm going to go ahead and put some edges in here so we've got something to bend. Okay. Now, like I said in the video, the bend tool is pretty much dependent on that object center. So getting the object center where you want it, however you want to do that, is going to be part of the key. So for this one, I'm going to put it down there at the bottom. And it will work without those controller objects that I used in the video. I don't like using it without the controller objects. It tends to, well, I'll show you. If I go over here and we'll add bend to this, or it's not called bend, it is, where is it? Not display, smash deform. And simple deform. Badly named. It also comes with twist, taper, and stretch are also in that family. I'd like to see those four split off into their own separate ones. But here's bend. And let's see what it does just without using the controller object. You can see that all it's really going to do is kind of wiggle back and forth. Now, depending on where you put that center, it's going to change what you get with the bend modifier. So for instance, which way, I forget which axis it's built on. That's the, what's it bending on there? That's the Z axis. I can almost figure it out. If I take that, hit rotate, let's do 90 degrees. Rotate on the X, 90 degrees, I think that will work. And now we go over here to bend. Set the, this is why I don't like using it without the, I don't like using it without those control objects for that reason. Let's take that off. All right. And go to simple deform. There you go. And now you're going to get a different bend on this. You can see it kind of twisting. So trying to get something that's real exact without the control object is kind of difficult. At least I think it's kind of difficult. So I usually use the control objects on it. Not going to get this exact, but whoops, just to show you real quick. So if I put that piece there, and we then go to our modifier, and we'll put a simple deform on it. Oh wait, before we do that, sorry, I said I would put that control object in there. Let's go ahead and add a you can use any object. I like to use those little control objects. Where are they? Empty. Here they are. And these don't render, so that's the benefit. We'll just use a sphere this time. I usually use the sphere. Doesn't matter which one you use. They all basically work the same. And we'll go to this guy. We'll add a bend to him. Or not a bend, a simple deform with bend in it. And then what I'll do is grab that object empty there. You can see it's listed in there. So now when I go to rotate that empty object, it's going to control the bend of my object. Now, I'm not doing that exactly. We'll, which axis here? Is that the x-axis that's doing that? Nope. Yeah, there you go. It's going to be the y. So if I hit R, y, I don't know what'll work, probably 90 degrees, yep. So you can see it rotate. So now it's on the right rotation. and we can control the angle over here. So you got to get it on the right axis that it's bending, which makes sense. I mean, there's many different ways it can bend. I just wish that what is effectively controlling that is this empty. If you assign it here, I'd rather there was a little interface right there that did that for me. So I could just click X, Y, Z, big old X, Y, Z, and then affect the deform. That would be much easier than trying to add the empties to it and rotating them around, because I always end up having to do this kind of wiggle around thing to get my bearings on which axis. Those empties come in, and then my object is on its own axis, and you get world axis, local axis, and all sorts of other stuff mixed in. So it usually takes some finagling around to get it to work. So yeah, bend, nifty. You can move this axis, obviously, and it's going to affect it. So that's its. I'm moving the object in edit mode there. If I click the control object and move it, you can see that's going to move it also. The further away it is, well, it's either going to get smaller or bigger. I like that this ends up kind of being a slider in itself. I just don't particularly like that. There's a lot of clicking around that goes on here is the problem. So we can angle that all the way around. I've got polygons stuffed in there, obviously, that would need to be cleaned up. But you can see I can move that object around, move it up and down. Once I get it bent, you can also scale it too, and it will control it. So you can control how big that piece is. So bend tool. The bend tool seems to be an important one in every software, no matter what you're using. Blender just kind of has it hidden a little bit. Go to subdivision surface. We could subdivide this like we did in the video, and then we could delete those polygons there and merge them, and we'd get rid of that thing. If you want to make a nose ring. So, nifty. Once I get going with it, I like it. But I mean, think of all the whoever designs this stuff. I'm going from over here to down here. I'm looking here, which is something Blender's never really done particularly well. Anyways, is keep your eyes where it really matters, which is on the objects itself. But if you think about it, you're having to go from all over the place here in Blender just to get that simple bend. Okay, well, with that in mind, I'm going to open up this other file that I got. And I wanted to talk about Greeble. This is my new toy that I found this morning. I was doing something else and got sidetracked with this. This is a free add-on. Now, there are numerous different Greeble add-ons. I ran across at least 3 different ones. Some of them you have to pay for. This one was free, and it is called Greeble FX. So the word Greeble, Greeble, and then FX after that. If you Google that, it'll take you to it. And it's free, at least for now. I needed to do a tweet about it or promote it or something, and then it gave it to me for free. Simple add-on install. You just extract the archive that you download, and then you go to your user preferences add-ons, install add-on, click on the, I think it was a py file for Python file, and it just installs it. But what it does, I'm going to, are these separate pieces here? final. This guy called. Here we go. Is it this one? Nope. Nope. I'll get it. Nope. I can't find my file here. What is this guy? Well, that's strange. Didn't seem to make the file. Here's the first one. Oh well. Move that guy aside. What I did here is I just applied the Greeble. So here's what your menu would usually look like. It installs as this little tab, and not much you can do with it to start with. So what you can do is hit Greeble Faces. Oops, need to be in edit mode. Need to be in edit mode. I'm going to select all the faces. You can select individual faces you want. Then Greeble. Oh, now why aren't you working? That should work. Let's do this. There we go. Okay, come over here. And we'll Greeble the faces. I believe I need to be in edit mode. There we go. Oh, why is that not working? Oh, now it's not working. Let's open. Open. Which one was it? I think it's this one. Nope. Open. This one? Nope. I've lost my file of this whole thing has gone wacky. There we go. Okay, and start over. I don't know if it has an issue with that piece there, but we'll see. So now we go to, I believe, Greeble. I don't think it's going to work if I click that. Oh, there we go. Okay, and then you hit Greeble Faces while in object mode. Now it does this kind of turtle shell thing right off the bat, which would be really neat for cobblestones if you think about it. Almost. Wouldn't offset them, but be a cool feature. In fact, we'll give that a try because that sounds like it would work. And then you get a few controllers, so you can change the amount. For instance, I'll just change a few of them to be bigger there. If I go down, there we go. We'll change a few of them to be bigger, kind of make like a rock wall type texture. You can kind of inflate them out or make them bigger, so I'm going to make those a little bit bigger. And then it's got this height control, which just kind of inflates them. It doesn't do a whole lot. And then you can offset. This button is really neat. If I click offset, it does this kind of jagged thing, which it would be nice if there was a smoothing control to get rid of these little pointy pieces, but it's still pretty neat. We're going to come back to that in a second. I'm going to offset those. And then we'll apply the Greeble. Now it makes a separate object. So we've got this object over here. And the reason I use that rock is I wanted to show you it'll work on a 3D object, not just a plane. But you could use this to make little cobblestones. And then if I go in here and add a subdivision modifier, you can see we get these kind of cool shapes. Now I don't know, let's try, if I undo that and there was kind of like an inflate feature here. Yeah, it's that one, and amount, height is what I want. Yeah, it would be neat if it had like a expansion where it insets those. Yeah, it doesn't really. If it had like an inset feature so I could get these pieces closer together. If I remove that, go back to Greeble faces. Yeah, it doesn't really control the inset, which would be nifty. Now, I tried this custom Greeble, and I don't know exactly what that's doing. It wants another object or a group, and I'm assuming that it applies the same features to a larger group of objects. So I'm going to do that. This time, let's really inflate those guys out so we can see what's going on. And I'm not sure what that's doing. It's kind of like it relaxes the height on them. Let's cut the amount down so we'll get kind of this weird looking thing. And then we'll apply that offset. This is the part I wanted to show you. And I'm going to must be this one. I'm going to cut that amount down quite a bit. And then apply that Greeble. Move this guy over so we can see what's going on. And then add my subdivision surface to it. And you get this really cool feature, kind of like lava or something. And now if I put this back on my rock, which I've messed up my movement there a little bit. Could probably just put it back at 0. Okay. And we'll color these real quick, and I'll show you why I like this little trick. There you go. So you could do like lava pieces or chocolate. Cracked chocolate. I'm not sure what to do with that. I like that it has that randomize feature in it. That's something that I haven't seen in Greebles and other programs. Now, I haven't used Greeble in a number of years, so there might be some better options out there. And like I said, there were some Greeble add-ons that were paid or that cost money, and they looked like they had more inclusive controls. The offset's the main one that I would like to see. There was also, a lot of times we'll use Greebling to kind of do like an object paint where you'll attach objects to the Greebling and then it'll distort those objects randomly. Like setting up a city block or something like that. So, just something to show you. Not really a better place to put it in our little chats, so I thought this was a good spot. So that is going to do it for this one. Let me tell you what's coming up at 12 today. I think it's that dinosaur talk that we wanted to do again. No, it is not. Oh, it's X-ray and alpha settings. Sorry. It is talking about two different things. They sort of belong in the same family, but we're going to talk about the X-ray feature, which is more of an interface thing, and then our alpha settings, which is usually an import thing. Not an import thing, an object thing. All right. So that is coming up today at 12 noon. So I will see you back at that point. And you all have a good day. Bye bye.